In this Map Suite MVC Edition sample app walkthrough, we're going to show you how you can buffer a feature using some of the Map Suite APIs. So in the sample here, we've just got a basic background map of the United States, and we've got a feature here hovering over the center of the United States. On the left, we've got a button that if we click this, you'll now see that it has buffered this feature by 1,000 kilometers on each side to generate a nice rounded feature that is buffering this original one. So if you're needing to use some buffering in your application, this sample can be very helpful to show you how to do it. So let's dig right in and take a look at the source code. To start, let's look at the view source. And just like most of our samples, we've got some JavaScript, we've got some HTML here. This is where our button is for the buffer button. And then down here is where we're setting up the map when the application is loaded. So this first part is just setting up the map with the World Map Kit overlay and zooming it into the United States area. And then down here we got two different in-memory feature layers, a map shape layer and a buffer layer. So if we look at the map shape layer first, this is just where we're adding a feature to it, and this is that square feature you see hovered over the center of the United States. And so we're just adding that feature via the internal features collection and some well-known text here, and giving it a color of deep ocean for the outline and a fill color of using those RGB values. Then down here we set up the buffer layer, and by default the buffer layer doesn't have anything on it because we won't add the new feature until we actually do the buffer operation, but we want to go ahead and set it up in the load so once we have that new feature we can just add it to it. And we're going to use these types of styles to display that buffered feature, a light green border and some RGB values for the fill that are fairly transparent so you can see through it. And then we add those two layers to an overlay and add that overlay to the map, and then finally render the map out. So most of the magic happens in this sample when the user clicks the buffer button. So that button's defined here, and if you look, the onClick event calls this button buffer click a JavaScript routine. So if we go up and look at this JavaScript, you'll see that we're actually doing a map1.ajax call action, which is an Ajax callback, and we're telling we want to go to the server, we want to look at the interactive overlays controller, and then use the buffer feature method. And we're not actually passing any arguments in this time, and once we're done with that, we want to do a callback and just redraw the buffer layer overlay so we can show the updated buffer result that we got on the server. So let's take a look at the server code now so we can see how the buffer operation actually works. So to do that, we'll go into the controller source here, and we'll look at this buffer feature method, and the first thing we do is just check to make sure we have a valid map. In all of our Ajax callbacks we pass back the map so we can do things accordingly. Then we get our reference to our map shape layer and our buffer layer that we set up when we loaded this sample application. And then down here we're going to create an area base shape and get a reference to that polygon that we created when we loaded the sample originally with that well-known text. So this is going to represent that rectangle you saw hovering over the United States. And then down here we're going to create a multi-polygon shape to contain what our buffered result that we're going to buffer on that feature. And to do the actual buffering, you'll see on the base shape that again is representing that rectangle we saw originally over the United States. We're going to call the buffer method, and we're going to tell it we want to buffer it by 1,000. And you'll see down over here, this is where we're telling it we want it kilometers. So if you wanted to do it by miles, you would change this last parameter to miles. And this second parameter is called what we call quadrant segments. And so with buffering, a lot of times you get a lot of rounded edges and things of that nature. And a quadrant segment means how many points do you want to be in every quarter of a circle, because circles can be as detailed or as generic as you'd like. 8 is a good number, and that's what we set it by default if you don't use this overload. But you can set anywhere values from 3 being the most simple quarter circle to 100 being the most detailed. And then we talk about the buffer cap type is round, so there's other types of cap types as well, such as square and but round is again a pretty common one. And then the unit that our data is in, that our original feature is in, and then the unit that we want to buffer it by. So in this case, again, it's kilometers, and we want to buffer it by 1,000 kilometers. Once we have that buffered shape, we just went ahead and created a new feature using that base shape. In this sample, we're not adding any other column values and such, but a lot of times it's just easier to deal with features instead of the raw shapes. So we went ahead and created a feature using that. And then we just clear any other features we had on the buffer layer. We add that buffered feature, and then once we've added that to the buffer layer, we go ahead and redraw that overlay so it will be displayed on the map accordingly. So with that, you get that result here of again, this buffered feature, this lighter looking feature, and you can see the rounded edges, and this rounded edges is made up of those 8 points that we defined in that API call as well. So I hope this sample walkthrough has been helpful for you, and it allows you to add buffering to your application if your requirements require that. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Or as always, you can post them directly on our discussion forum at thinkgeo.com/forums. Thank you.